Hello everybody and welcome to another UKGN Network podcast, our weekly look at what's been happening in the world of games. I'm Zoidberg, and before we start this week, I want to talk about long-awaited gaming sequels. More specifically, what we should be expecting from them. Back in February, Microsoft released Crackdown 3 on Xbox One, and found itself on the receiving end of some scathing reviews, mostly saying that its gameplay felt old and didn't belong in 2019. As a Crackdown fan, I loved it, and I'm sure many others did too, and I still enjoy playing it. This series has always been about being dropped into a citywide playground and sent off to make your own fun, and that's exactly what Crackdown 3 delivered. I mention this because recently I've seen similar comments being aimed at the Borderlands 3 trailers, saying that it just seems like more of the same, as if that's a bad thing. At the moment, what Gearbox are selling is more Borderlands, and that's all it needs to be. We should probably brace ourselves for reviews that are more concerned with what this game isn't rather than what it is. Sometimes more of the same is a good thing, even a great thing, as long as there are a few new ideas thrown in, and at this stage we simply don't know what extras the developers have come up with. So all I'm saying is really, we should all temper our expectations, especially when nobody has played the game yet. Which side of the argument are you on? Do you want your sequels to be a complete reinvention, or do you welcome the familiar? Let us know in the comments what you think. In a surprising move, Sony have revealed details of what we can expect from the next generation PlayStation console. Expect the next console to be fully backwards compatible with all PlayStation 4 games, including the PlayStation VR hardware, although there's no mention of whether it will be backwards compatible with earlier PlayStation consoles. The new console also has a disk drive, so it will still support physical media, although it will now be using a solid state drive for storage so that all games will load faster. Some of Sony's internal studios are already working on games, and it was hinted that games such as The Last of Us Part 2 and Death Stranding will be cross-generational and work on both. It also definitely won't be available in 2019, but they announced that the price will be appealing to gamers, whatever that means. If Xbox and PS4 are anything to go by, we can probably expect that to be around the £500 mark. Also this week we finally got our first look at Respawn's Jedi First Order, with the first trailer shown during the Star Wars celebration in Chicago. The biggest cheer came when it was announced that the game is single player only and will feature no microtransactions, with EA confirming that they won't even be adding them later on Twitter. The game sees you playing as a young Jedi Padawan who survived Order 66, so it's set between episodes 3 and 4. The trailer didn't show any actual gameplay, but the brief hints that we did get seemed to show Prince of Persia style war running mixed with some lightsaber combat, although at this stage we have no idea if the game is a first person shooter or a third person action game. We're sure more gameplay will likely surface at E3. 11-bit Studios' brutal and bleak city builder Frostpunk will be making its way to consoles this summer, and it's a game that made our top 5 games of 2018. The survival of your citizens is the key goal as you build the city, and you're regularly called upon to make devastating decisions throughout. Let's hope that the console version includes all the recent updates of the PC one, including the fantastic survival mode. Finally for this week, Microsoft announced the lineup for Xbox Game Pass for April. Last week we got Prey and the Golf Club 2, which arrived on the 11th. The big headline is that arriving on the 18th of April is Monster Hunter World from Capcom, which became the company's biggest selling game when it was released in January last year. Coming next week are the episodic releases of The Walking Dead: The New Frontier, as well as Life is Strange Episode 2, which is brilliant, as I've been very annoyed that it hasn't been available to buy on its own since it came out a couple of months ago. Xbox Game Pass continues to be one of the best things happening in gaming right now. Let's now move on to talk about the games that we've been playing this week, starting with Earth Defense Force Iron Rain on the PlayStation 4. This is the second EDF game to feature something close to modern visuals, but just like Insect Armageddon, the upsurge in visual fidelity hasn't diluted how much fun the game is. The storyline is still completely bonkers, with voice acting to match, giving it a real B-movie feel. Shooting your way through hundreds of giant insects and huge city-destroying robots is just as much fun as it's always been. Co-op 2 is a blast, whether you're playing online or in the always welcome split-screen mode. The vast number of weapons that the game gives you to play around with helps keep replayability high, and it's a very easy game to recommend. World War Z is based on the movie of the same name, and it's basically a better looking update of Left 4 Dead. The mid-range price point is just about right. The third person view doesn't quite work as well as the first person view did, but the zombie swarms are always impressive and they're enjoyable to take down. If you can get your friends to play along with you, then it's a lot of fun, and it has a lengthy campaign. Playing on your own with the AI can be frustrating, as they don't really do anything other than shoot, leaving you to have to do any of the mission objectives, but it still manages to be just about enjoyable. World War Z is available on Xbox One, PS4 and PC. Ghost Giant is the first VR game from Zoink Studios, the developers of Fee and Flipping Death. It features a fantastically well realised world that you'll stare at in wonder, finding yourself constantly looking around the scenery just to see what's there. The puzzles range from tedious to the inspired, and the move controls don't really help, as they can be fiddly, making it harder than it should be to do what you want. The game is saved by its surprisingly emotional story that tugs at your heart and means the game is well worth a look. It's available now on PlayStation VR. Our World Is Ended is a Tokyo-set visual novel that promises a twisting narrative involving real and virtual worlds, although to be honest it failed to grab our attention, with bland characters despite the nice visuals. It's incredibly overpriced at £35 to £45 depending on which console you play it on, and it's not really worth your time or your money. It's available now on PlayStation 4 and Switch, with PC coming next month. 2 snooker games have been released this week to coincide with the start of this year's World Championship. Snooker 19 is the more glossy of the two, with licensed players, venues and a TV-style presentation. But Snooker Nation Championship is the more enjoyable game to play, with proven gameplay that worked in the developers' previous Pool Nation games. Both games are easy to play, but it's impossible to recommend Snooker 19 when Snooker Nation is a lot cheaper and just as good. Both games are available on Xbox One and PS4, with Snooker 19 also available on PC. Forza Street is a free-to-play spin-off which gives you no direct control over the cars, which steer for you. All you control is the brakes, accelerator and boost by keeping a hold of the spacebar as you play. To be honest, it's a bad idea in every conceivable way and you shouldn't really waste your bandwidth downloading it. The game is only currently available on Windows 10, with iOS and Android versions to come later. Finally this week is One Finger Death Punch 2, which just like the first game is a highly recommended slice of pure arcade action. It has a simple 2-button control scheme that anyone can master, and I personally found it better to play with a joypad or keyboard, as the mouse controls weren't really responsive enough, although I'll admit that could be my hardware. It's incredibly addictive, especially in the survival mode, and you'll keep coming back for years to try and improve your high score. That concludes everything we have for this week's podcast. Thanks for listening. Please let us know what you think in the comments. Are you excited about the next generation of consoles? Have you played any of the games that we've talked about and disagree with what we've said? We'd love to hear what you have to say. This podcast is available on SoundCloud and YouTube each week. Subscribe so that you won't miss the next one. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter if you like, and join in with our quizzes and gaming chat. And while you're at it, see if you know what this week's mystery screenshot's going to be. I'm Zoidberg from UK Gaming Network. See you next week.